Well, okay, hello my bookish friends. How are you guys doing today? So today's the last day of January 31st, 2025. I feel like I've had a good reading month. I feel like I started the year off strong. But I know I won't be able to keep this pace up through the whole year, okay? It's just, I think for me, January winds up being like a month off. Do you know how most people do summer vacations in June, July, and August? For me, I actually take a lot of time off in January, and I can do that being a stay-at-home mom who's only got one more kid left in high school. January is typically a very slow, very low-key month for me. It's almost like you see people on YouTube doing reset videos. It's almost kind of like a reset for me. So I get rid of 2024. And I don't get ready for 2025 until like February. So, it's practically a whole month off for me. I mean, I still do things. The dishes still get done, the laundry still gets done, and the kids still, get to work and get to school. But it's very low key for me. It's a chance for me to breathe and try to figure out what I want to leave behind. And then what I want going forward. And it turns out I've been doing that for years without even realizing that's what I was doing. So, hello, my name is Jenny. Welcome to Jenny and the Books. It should be Jenny and all of her books, because in a few minutes I'm going to show you the piles and piles and piles of books on my floor. It's a dirty little secret for me that I shop and I buy books at the thrift store faster than I can read them, and they have a tendency to pile up. Anytime I try to do an unhaul, I take books off the shelf that I know that I no longer have any interest reading, or I tried reading and I just couldn't get into it. And when I take them off the shelf, they still wind up on my floor and I don't actually get rid of them. I would like to donate them back to the thrift store. I would like to put them in little free libraries. I just have a hard time letting go. So this year I'm going to be a bit more honest and transparent with you guys and show you everything that what my house looks like as I'm doing it. So anyway, January, I read 12 books. And I say read. I had my hands on 12 books, and I was reading words out of 12 books. Okay, here I want to show you this is my Google document. Check this out. I did a calendar, and then on whatever day that I read any particular book, I dropped in the cover, drag and drop, right, or insert. So on this day here and this day here, I read Oona out of order, and you can see that typically it only takes me about 2 days to read a book, right? Yeah, that's my average, okay? So there are 12 books on here, and then down in this little block down here at the bottom, for Saturday's block, because it doesn't have any numbers on there for the month, total pages read 2,918. And what I did is I just used a mix between, I have a reading app on my iPad that I use to track my reading, and it lists how many pages are in the book, and then sometimes I'll double check that against Goodreads. And then what I did, I have 2 books that I did, it's sort of like a DNF, like a did not finish. I'm going to try to go back to them, but for now I put them down. I read 58 pages in one book and 30 pages in another. So I did count that in my total pages counted for the month. All right. There's a new stat that I want to start tracking, male versus female writers. I'm pretty sure that I'm probably about half and half. 50% male, 50% female, but I'm not exactly sure, and I see a lot of other people who read will track that number to make sure that they're reading from both genders' perspectives, and then non-binary that's in there too. So for now I'm just doing male female, okay, because it's not always easy to find out if somebody identifies other. So I figure male and female is the easiest thing to go with. So out of these 12 books, 2 were from males and 10 were from females. So I kind of like that, right? It's a good way to start the year. I would also like to start tracking ethnicity to make sure that I am reading more globally and out of the norm, I guess. Because we know that the publishing industry is dominated by white men. We know that. So I want to make sure that I am diversified in my reading. So that's another stat I'm going to start tracking. but it's more for my benefit, not necessarily to do videos with like other people do. It's just I want to make sure that I'm diversified, which I'm pretty sure that I am. And I also do read stuff from other countries, not just stuff written by American authors set in the US. I already know that I read stuff from Canada, the UK, Australia. I just want to make sure it's a little bit more diversified. So how do you like my little document? For me, because I'm a very visual person, like I can write these titles down all I want, but I need to be able to see the cover to remember the book. You know, like the title of the book, except for something like Yellowface, because that's pretty easy to remember. But something like Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren, I would need to see the cover to remember what was what. So I'm a very visual person, and I really kind of like the way this turned out. Now my printer, the printer I have is meant to print black and white. Okay, that's why I bought it. It's bare bones. It does not do well with the color on the covers. So I actually used a colored pencil to go, like this one. This one's about a Christmas tree farm, and it came out really yellow in the background. So my printer's not mixing colors very well. So I just used a colored pencil and colored over top of it. And this one here, it has got blue on the cover. This one's got blue on the cover, but it didn't come out. Colored pencils or markers, crayons, whatever. So this is my nice pretty copy. This is the one I printed out before I read Parable of the Sower. And then these are all the genres that I read from. The fact that one book is nonfiction, 11 were fiction, and I started writing things down, notes on the back. So this is what my copy looks like. And then this is the pretty copy for public consumption. Oh, I love it. All right, I read one novella, and that was Below Zero by Hazelwood. I read one nonfiction, which is My Hygge Home. It's pronounced Hygge, but it's spelled Hygge. It's very it's Sweden, Finland, Norway, those Scandinavian countries, and it's about a coziness level that you keep in your house to make your home warm, cozy, and inviting. It's about having friends over for dinner, for a dinner where you just sit and talk. It's not about eating food. It's about just gathering together and connection, right? My house is nowhere near that, and I'm actually been on a journey for the last couple years, kind of like Swedish death cleaning, to get rid of all my stuff so my kids don't have to inherit my hoard. And so, like, when I do get rid of all my stuff, what do I do then? And I want my house to be warm. I want it to be cozy. I want it to be inviting. I want it to be full of light. I do not have enough windows in my house. I love windows. I love natural sunlight. But I'm also a bit of a pack rat, and I'm just over the line, towing the line at being a hoarder. I know where my issue comes from, and I am working on it. So that's why I'm going to show you guys the piles of books on the floor that I'm having a hard time letting go of. Genre-wise, I read paranormal romance, time travel, sci-fi, dystopian, post-apocalyptic, contemporary, romance, holiday. The one phrase that kept coming up was chick lit, and I think they are books written by female authors for a female audience. But I don't know, the phrasing chick lit, meaning chick literature or women's literature, I prefer the term women's literature. Maybe because I'm 53 years old. I don't know. I prefer that term versus chick lit. So you guys let me know down in the comments below if you have a preference for either term. I mean, I know I do. I've read historical fiction. One book had a touch of Christian to it. There was STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. One book that had some humor in it, some thriller, mystery, horror. And you know, most books have more than one genre at a time. So, I mean, there was a lot. And then, like you see there, when I added all these genres up, they came up to like 23, 24 genres. And I read 12 books, you know. Let's see. There's a number for how many I physically own versus how many were digital. So my digital books were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 digital books, and then 7 are on my shelf. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah, so 7 on my shelf. Out of those 7, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them were the ones from that book haul that I showed you. I did pretty good. There's only 3 more books in that stack of books that I didn't read yet. So let's go. Shadow Fallen by Sherrilyn Kenyon. She writes paranormal romance. And this is like book number 36 in a series of books of the Dark Hunter novels and the Dream Hunters. So this one is a Dream Hunter novel. I have read mostly all the others. I have a small gap that I need to go back and get caught up on. So let's see. The main female, she has godlike powers, and then she pissed somebody off by doing something, so she got cursed. She was put into a human body and sent to Earth, and she had no memory of who and what she was. He is the son of a god, but he doesn't know it. So his powers are bound right now, and he doesn't even know that he has powers. He's a really skilled warrior in battle. People are always trying to take advantage of him. People are always saying that he's cursed and that he's a demon because he's got 2 different colored eyes. One's brown, one's green, something like that. It's supposed to be like the mark of the devil. They meet each other. They fall in love. There's this big war raging up in the heavens. And so lots of paranormal, supernatural, fantasy in there. And then the romance. I love Sherrilyn Kenyon. I love the way she writes the Dark Hunter novels. I love the way she writes the Dream Hunter novels, which is in the same universe and they're tied together. These books are usually very much a comfort read for me, and I whenever I need to escape from this world that we live in, I go here. And so I read this one completely out of order, but that's okay. A lot of times you can read them as standalones, but there will be a time or two in the book where they'll mention somebody and you'll be like, who is that and what was that about? But for the most part, you can read them as standalone. Let's see, the romance. So there's also sex in here. If you're not a big fan of reading about spiciness in sex, maybe you might want to skip it. So it's not closed door romance. It's not just holding hands and a little bit of kissing. It's a bit more than that. So, okay. But so I love it. It's a comfort read for me. And, oh, here, I'll hold it still. Talk with my hands. Yeah. Yeah, I know. All right. So Oona out of order. This one was interesting. Margarita Montimore. Oona out of order. This one was the time travel, so it falls under science fiction. But they don't explain how the time travel happens. So it's very, very light on the science fiction aspect. It's just mentioned, and it's an everyday fact of her life, although she keeps it a secret from the outside world. So there's a possibility that other people time travel, but we don't know because it really is just from Oona's point of view. She was 18 years old on New Year's, and then January 1st, right at the stroke of midnight, she jumped out of her 18-year-old body and jumped into her 51-year-old body. So it's her consciousness that's traveling in her own timeline, okay? Which reminds me very much of a TV show from the 80s called Quantum Leap with, oh, what's that actor's name? The character's name was Sam Beckett. Scott Bakula. He played Sam Beckett in Quantum Leap, and I loved Quantum Leap back in the day. He was a scientist, research, and his consciousness, he would start traveling, time traveling, and also people traveling. When his consciousness left his body, it didn't go into his own body, it went into somebody else's. And the premise of Quantum Leap was way ahead of its time back in the day. And that's the kind of science fiction that I love. I grew up on Quantum Leap, the X-Files, Star Trek The Next Generation. That's my kind of sci-fi. And when I even just get a little touch of it in the books, it makes me very happy. So this reminded me very much of Quantum Leap, although Oona kept jumping into her own body in her own timeline. So when she left her 51-year-old body, she went into... I actually took notes so I can keep track. She went into her 27-year-old body, and then to her 40-year-old self, and then her 39, and then 31. And then eventually she makes it back into her 19-year-old self so she can start her life and know all the things that has happened to her. So while I was reading it, I did very much enjoy this book. It is all from her point of view and how she handles time traveling within her own body. And the changes, because she goes from being 18 to 51. So the woman that she's looking at in the mirror, she doesn't recognize. I mean, she can see parts of herself, but she's heavier, she's gray, and she's completely, she has no idea what was going on in her life. And it was how she dealt with it. And she spent 1 year living in her 51-year-old body. And then when she time jumped again on New Year's, she, when she went to her 30-year-old self or her 27-year-old self, she would spend another year living in that body. So, it was a good read. It really was. When I get done with books like this, I have to say to myself, will I read it a second time? If I won't read it a second time, I'll keep it on my shelf for this year, and then I will try to purge it at the end of the year to let it go. I'm trying to curate my bookshelves and have them represent what my favorites are and what I loved and what affected me and moved me and made me feel things or learn things or change things about myself. So this one, while I did enjoy it and it did remind me a lot of the science fiction that I do enjoy, more than likely I will probably purge it at the end of the year. But I would like to take a look at the author, Margarita Montimore, and see if she's written anything else and see if it has any sci-fi in it. And see if there's anything else that I could read from her. Because, like, once an author writes a book that I really did enjoy, I try to check out anything else. So, I read this oh, you know what I forgot? The Hygge home that I read about making your house nice and cozy and comforting, it was digital. And I brought it into 2025 from 2024. I had started it around Christmas because you know how we're all trying to clean our houses at Christmas and then maybe purge some stuff before the holidays and then purge some stuff after the holidays. So it had taken me a while to read it. It took me a week and a half to read it, but that's, you know, because it's nonfiction. You can go back to it whenever. So there we go. I'm so sorry. I don't even follow my own list because I was so proud of myself for 5 books out of 8 or 9 in this book haul that I had done. I was so proud of myself. So, after Oona, Out of Order, and after Shadow Fallen, I started off really great with these, okay? I went to Severance by Ling Ma. Yeah, this one was tough. So, it turns out it's not satire. It is literary fiction. And there's one thing that I keep forgetting about myself, is I really don't like literary fiction. It's not plot driven, it's not action, it's not adventure, it's not thriller, it's not mystery, it's not suspense, it's not horror. It does not move fast enough for me. I get so bored with the slow pacing of literary fiction. But this book's got really good high reviews on Goodreads from all the booktubers that I watch. And I watch a lot of booktubers because I like book content. That's why I started making my own. But this book is so slow. So slow. It's more character driven, but at the same time, I'm not connecting with any of the characters. And there is some sort of apocalyptic thing that happened. The closest is a zombie apocalypse, but not quite zombies like we know of from the walkers in The Walking Dead. It's a different take on that, but so far it's not heavy on that, you know? It's more about this main female character, which, does she even have a name? She's got to have a name, right? But anyway, I can't quite think of what it is off the top of my head. So this was on January 7th. So it's not a DNF. I would love to say, did not finish, put it down, and never go back to it again. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try and work through my issue with literary fiction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick it up again in February, around the same time, on the 7th, and read another chapter. If that chapter cannot grab me, I will probably put it down and try it again in March and keep going through the rest of the year until I can see if I can finish this book, okay? This is one of the ones where I made it up to page 57, which is the end of chapter 3. So I'm at chapter 4. So I've only read that much, right? But I'm going to keep trying because the reviews on this book say it's really good. So I want to keep trying. So I'm going to change the phrase from DNF and soft DNF to pause. I'm putting a pause on this book. Okay? I think that's a really good thing to do. So this was out of my stack of the book haul that I had showed you guys, right? So after this, because I was so disappointed with this, I read 57 pages and I still wasn't into it yet, right? I went to my iPad, to the tablet, and one of my reading apps with my library. I picked a book called The Book Club Hotel, written by... Wow, I've done a lot of talking. I'm so sorry. See, that's what I'm thinking. I need to do videos a little more often so I can keep them smaller and easily digestible. So, The Book Club, The Book Club Hotel by Sarah Morgan. I read it through one of my library apps. It was 368 pages. I read it within a day. I enjoyed it. It's about 3 women who became friends in college, and they became very good friends to the point where they created their own little family. One woman is married with 2 children that are getting ready to leave and go off to college. So she's feeling an empty nest before her nest is actually empty. And in the process of dealing with her feelings about her children leaving and what does she do now, because she was a really good stay-at-home mom, which I can almost identify with that because my children are leaving too. She's hurting her husband's feelings because he's like, well, I'm here. What's wrong with me? Aren't you excited to spend some time with me, right? And she's like, but doesn't he understand that I'm losing my children and it hurts my feelings and then I'm nothing without them? And he's like, well, what about me? So, like, there was parts of that I can understand and identify with, and in parts of it I was like, woman, I'm going to come through this book and smack you upside the head, right? So, one of her other friends is very career-driven and working in an office and working for herself and does not have a regular man in her life, but she's starting to feel like maybe she's missing out on something. And maybe she works too hard. Maybe she does not live life a little bit. And then the third woman in their group is a professional chef. Followed her boyfriend to a completely different state to work at a restaurant. And they spent 10 years together for him to leave for a girl that was younger. So then this woman's like, oh my God, my whole life was about him. Who am I? You know, so that's their friendship. And every year, I mean, that's who they are. So every year they would get together in the summer, they would book a hotel, they would pick a book to read, and they would get together and talk about the book and have a vacation and relax and have a girls' day or a girls' night, but for a whole week. So what happened was in the summer they couldn't do it because that's when the one woman, her boyfriend or fiance, left her for somebody younger, and so they had postponed their trip. And they wound up doing it in December in a little bed and breakfast run by a woman who turns out is the stepsister of the woman who was very career driven. See, her father had abandoned her when she was a baby. And she was raised by her mother who turned very cold and calculating. And her father went off to have another wife and another child and another family. So she didn't even know she had a sister. So it was there's family drama, but I enjoyed it because what I liked was the atmosphere in the book at this bed and breakfast and decorating for Christmas, and the woman who runs the bed and breakfast being the sister. And then she had a love interest in her life, and while she was a single mom raising her daughter after her husband had died, I liked the relationships. I liked the found family aspect of it. How they were figuring things out, and how it's nice to have a core group of people to help you out with things in your life where they don't judge you, they listen to you, and they can help you or not. But I appreciated that, and got a little bit of insight into myself with my kids leaving the nest, you know. My 21-year-old has moved out. My 20-year-old is still here. My 18-year-old is still here. But my 18-year-old is chomping at the bit to go off to college. She is ready to go, but she's still finishing up her senior year of high school. So yeah, like, what happens to my life after my children go, you know? Who am I without them? And how does my husband feel about it? Well, I tell you what, my husband is not ready for them to leave either. He is so not ready. I mean, I think he's worse off than I am. So I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the atmosphere of the bed and breakfast around the Christmas season with the snow, the found family. It was a good read. It was an easy read. It was highly enjoyable. So it's called The Book Club Hotel by Sarah Morgan. I don't have my reading glasses on. I'm pretty sure that says Sarah Morgan. So I had taken a break from that one. And when I was done that, I usually try to take a day off in between my books. And then I picked up Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I read the introduction, the epilogue, the opening chapter, the foreword, the prelude, pick a word, historical notes. Huh. Okay, no, it was the official first chapter. It does say chapter 1. I did read that. It's historical fiction. It is, it says a novel of the plague, so I'm assuming the bubonic plague, Black Death. And it's loosely based on Shakespeare. Like, Shakespeare is a character in this book, but he's not named as a character in this book. So it's not about Shakespeare, but about his wife, his children, his parents, and how he's working in London and he sends money home. His son, Hamnet, which is not Hamlet, which is his play that he wrote, is sick. The daughter was sick. His father was abusive. So I'm not always a fan of historical fiction, but I do love a good retelling. I'm fascinated by William Shakespeare, but the only thing I've ever read was Romeo and Juliet, and I read that in high school. So as a full-grown adult, I haven't read anything from Shakespeare. So I'm trying this for a book club that I joined, and it's the pick for January, and I only made it through the first chapter. I picked it up a couple days later, got partway into the second chapter and put it back down again. So again, this is going to be, I would call it a soft DNF, but I'm changing that phrasing because it's not that I didn't finish it. It's just not grabbing me yet. I'm going to pause it and I will try it again in February like I plan on doing with Severance. And I'll try it again in March and see if I can't finish reading it because I hear this one's really good too. And the writing is beautiful, but it's a bit purple prose and a little bit long-winded for me, and I have a tendency to get bored. It turns out I really like fast pacing in a book. I like to be able to chew it up, eat it up, and then be done with it. I like it fast, you know. So I'm really struggling with slower paced books and longer, beautiful written prose. I really have to be in the mood for that. So this one is a bit of a pause, okay? So let's see, after I did Hamnet, was another day or two before I read another digital book through my library app. You know, it's funny, I gotta give you a stat. From like last year with Storygraph, it was telling me that every time I read a physical book, I read a digital book. So my stat for the year was usually 50% physical books, 50% digital books. Every now and then it would be 46-54, where I read 2 physical books and 1 digital. So I'm curious to see what that stat looks like to the rest of this year. I read a book called The Christmas Tree Farm by Melody Carlson. The book was fairly short, so it's bigger than a novella, but smaller than the average novel. It was 176 pages. And it was a woman who inherited a Christmas tree farm from her grandparents. And she shares it with her sister. But the main female character, she, to me, was insufferable. She was entitled, she was selfish, she was completely oblivious and unaware. She treated her sister like crap, but her sister treated her like crap. There was no real relationship there until the end, and they're like, oh, I love you, I forgive you for everything you've said to me that was mean. And then there was this is where the Christian comes in. It's like, oh, well, God does this and God does that, and maybe we should go to church. And I usually don't mind it, but the way it was done in this book, and then the main male love interest has a daughter. The daughter was the best character in the whole book. This kid's only like 12 years old or something. She was the best character in the whole book, but it was not enough to redeem the book for me. So while I read it, I was not happy with it, and I only gave it 1 star. I did not enjoy it at all. It frustrated the crap out of me. So then, of course, I went and read some Hazelwood. Allie does characters that the main female character is smart until it comes to men, and she's completely dumb. So she's book smart, college smart, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics smart. But when it comes to men, she's completely dumb. I kind of enjoy that. I could call it a guilty pleasure. I don't know. I kind of enjoy that. So it was the novella. It's below 0. The characters already knew each other. He likes her, she likes him, but they clash on so many things. So they think they hate each other, but they don't. I enjoyed it. And the whole thing where, you know, he's so big and tall and she's so short. He's so broad-shouldered and she's so tiny. How do they fit together? It's fun stuff, and I don't take it too seriously. So I read Below 0 from Hazelwood, and there's 2 others in this series. So there's 3 novellas altogether about 3 different women. I've got the next one. Like, this was book 3. And I think it's book 2 or book 1 that I have on hold at the library. So I'm waiting for that to come in. So I did 4 books out of my book haul, right? Even though these 2 are paused. Okay. I feel like I did pretty well. But then I was looking around at my stacks of books on the floor. And I mean stacks of books. So I'm going to turn you around. Don't judge. Or if you do, you can go ahead and judge. That's okay. Just don't be harsh, because I do cry. You ready? That stack of books right there. There's only 3 in that stack. Don't count the Nutcracker behind it, because I was trying to read that at Christmas time. But that stack right there, I decided to take a look, see if there was anything I could read in there. And that's right on the top. Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. I don't know how long this book has been sitting on my floor. It's been a couple months. It's actually sat through there through Christmas, actually. I really have to do something about cleaning up the stacks of books on my floor. So it was bought sometime in 2024. Spent $1.50 on it at the thrift store. Right? Hazel is, so this is, Christina Lauren is a writing duo. There's 2 different women. Christina Lauren, who write romance. Okay. I read the Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, and I loved it. I actually just recently found a copy of it in the thrift store. I've been looking for a copy because I'd like to reread it because it was fun. I really enjoyed the Unhoneymooners. I know so many people do not like it, but you gotta understand, sometimes romance is meant to be funny. So sometimes I think it should be labeled as humor and then romance. So, and then this one too. This one, it was more humorous than it was romantic. But Josh and Hazel. Hazel's a mess. She's one of those people who's scatterbrained. But she can also be the life of the party. She goes with the flow. She dresses like a hippie. You know, she's not conventional in the way she dresses. And Josh is very straight-laced. Very much a neat freak. And, you know, they think that they're not a good fit for each other, and his girlfriend was cheating on him, and men do not like how how much of a free spirit Hazel is and are always trying to change her. So they decide to set each other up on dates, okay? So Hazel picks a woman for Josh. Josh picks a man for Hazel. And while they're going out on these double dates and these blind dates that they set up for each other, they realize they're actually attracted to each other. But it's also, it's funny, and his family, her family, I enjoyed it. It was fun. Is it something that I would read again? No, probably not. Not like The Honeymooners. The Honeymooners I found to be very fun. But if you just need to relax and not take life too seriously, Hazel also has a dog, not a cat, but a bird and a fish. I don't know. I can't remember actually. That's the thing, man. The books, they just go straight out of my head. I have fun while I read them. And reading should be fun. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't let anybody tell you that reading is supposed to be smart and that you're supposed to learn something. Reading is supposed to be fun. When did we ever forget that? Because when we were kids, reading was fun. And then it wasn't. So I'm trying to find the fun in reading again. And you wait till I get to my children's books. I have a lot of fun with children's books, and that's partly because of the way I read to my kids when they were babies. It was one of my favorite things to do. So, you know, romance, you don't have to take too seriously. You don't have to put a lot of thought into it. And you can chuckle along with them and the antics that they get up to. So, and the way they set each other up on the dates. So, Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. And then they fell in love and got married and had kids. And I totally enjoyed it. All right. So I spent the whole week not touching a book because that gets me up to January 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21, 22. See that big gap right there? My 18-year-old was sick. She's my kid that whenever she comes in contact with the common cold, she gets pneumonia. She gets fluid in her lungs and she can't breathe. And then when she starts coughing, it scares the crap out of her. She can't catch her breath. She starts crying, and it's painful, and it's hard to watch. And we've been doing this 18 years, but for some reason it was really bad this time. So she went to school, but then she was feeling a little better. And so she had taken a day off, and then she went back to school, and then she started feeling like crap again. It was on again, off again. And then it got really bad around Monday the 20th. So I took her to urgent care, and it turns out she does have fluid in her lungs. She does have pneumonia. But she needed some medicine, some steroids, and albuterol and an inhaler to help her. But she also tested positive for COVID. 2 things at the same time. And it was really hard on her. And so I spent a lot of time being a nursemaid? I don't know. I mean, what do you want to call it? Just being a mom, you know, making sure she was getting some rest, kept her fluids up, did her medicine, had some food, some oranges with some vitamin C so she could fight it off. So you can see when she finally went back to school and I went back to reading, and that's the 23rd and 24th when I read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This one has been on my list for a while. I hear that it's really good. Representative of culture appropriation. It's where somebody white like me would strongly identify with somebody else's culture and start taking it on for themselves or something like that. And yeah, it was 2 authors. They were friends in real life. The female Asian author had died, and the white lady had stole her most recent book and published it as her own. And it was a whole thing. This book has really good ratings, and the booktubers that I watch speak very highly of it. It didn't live up to the hype for me. Now, R.F. Kuang, she wrote Babel. She wrote The Poppy War. The Poppy War is on my shelf. I would like to read that someday. This one just didn't hit home for me. It was good writing. I'll give her that, but the character, I could not identify with this white female character, and what she did, watching this woman die, because she watched this woman die, and then she stole the book, the manuscript, and then she sold it as her own, and she took on this persona that was not her, and I just had a problem with all that, and it wasn't an enjoyable read for me, but the writing was good enough that I could keep reading it, if that makes sense. So it was okay for me. I would just give it an average star rating, and with a little note that I wrote here to myself, I don't get the hype. So, somewhere in there, I had been out to the thrift store and I got a whole other stack of books. But I'm not going to show you that stack because I'm telling you, I get so embarrassed about how I actually have 2 stacks over there. I'm not going to show you that one just yet because I just showed you part of my floor. But there was a book in that stack that I read. Yeah, okay. That Saturday, January 25th, I had been out and I bought a whole stack of books. We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kliewer. So this is a contemporary book. It was published in 2024. It is horror, okay? This book was so good at being twisty in the plot and in not knowing what was real. Even I don't know what was real. I don't know what happened to the main character. I might have to break this up into 2 videos. I don't know if there's a natural stop in the middle somewhere, because I can just talk all day about books. So unless somebody comes along and says, Jenny, shut up now, I've had enough, I don't want to hear any more about books. This book was so good. I enjoyed it so much. There's this house, and this woman, what was her name? Her girlfriend's name was Charlie. Eve. Her name was Eve. And her girlfriend's name is Charlie. And they bought a house. Okay? So Charlie's not in the house. Charlie's in town. Eve gets a knock at the door. It's a guy named Thomas with his wife and their 3 children. 2 teenage boys and a little girl. And Thomas says, I used to live in this house. I grew up in this house. We're driving by. Can I bring my family in and give them a tour of the house? And Eve's like, no, I don't really want to. But Eve is a people pleaser. She doesn't know how to say no. So she let these people into her house. And then it goes from there. It's got vibes of The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. For sure. It's got that kind of vibe to it. But it's also got vibes, and I think House of Leaves by Daniel Lusky. And I haven't read House of Leaves yet, but from what I'm hearing, it's really, and the Thomas is some kind of entity, whether he is a god or some kind of evil personified. He had a way of bending truth and reality, and then there's some sci-fi aspect to it of, are there parallel universes? Are there parallel Earths that things are bleeding through from one universe to another? There's talk of the Mandela effect, where, you know, back in the day, people thought Nelson Mandela died in prison, but he didn't, you know, but they all have memories of him dying in prison, but he didn't. So it's called the Mandela effect. And then there's Stan and Jan Berenstain from the Berenstain Bears from when I was a kid, and the spelling of their last name. It's company logos where you could swear that the logo looked like this, but in reality it looks like this. So there's talk of bleeding through from one reality to the next, from one parallel Earth to the next, and so there's a bit of that in here. There's this scary aspect of the basement where, you know, she's being herded. Something's going on in the house, and it's like it's pushing her further and further through the house. So she goes from upstairs to downstairs, and then from downstairs to the basement door, and then eventually down into the basement because she thinks she's going to be safe in there. Only to find out the basement is just as haunted, just as twisted, and whatnot. And then she winds up in a completely different place. So it's like, what is real? is our main female character losing touch with reality? Or was there really an evil entity that was doing all this to her? And then why would they do that to her? So like one chapter is from her point of view. Another the chapter after that would be, I'll show you. Like the first chapter is called Outsiders, because that's when Thomas and his family comes knocking on the door, right? The second chapter, it's labeled as Document. See that? Like you would for a court case or, you know, an investigation. So DOC is Document, and it's A01_property. So that's what the second chapter would look like. And then the third chapter would go back to Eve's point of view. The fourth chapter would be another document. And at the end of the documents, it took me a minute to figure it out, but there's Morse code at the end of the documents. Right here, you see these dashes and dots? That's Morse code. And I still haven't gone back to translate it yet. And I had a really good time with this book. It was a bit immersive. It wants you to go and find the chart for Morse code and decrypt what is written at the end of these documents. So I had a really good time with this book. And I think it's Marcus's debut novel. Marcus is a writer and a stop-motion animator. He lives in Vancouver, Canada, and connect with him on Instagram, which I think I just might go do that. So I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. I would say Kliewer, but I don't know. I had a really good time with this book. So I know it's a brand new book out in 2024. If you can't afford to go spend $30 on a book, $25 on a book, $28.99 on a book, go borrow it from the library. If you like twisty, suspenseful, psychological, because it messes with your mind, because you realize by the last chapter at the end of the book that Charlie, the girlfriend, is actually looking for Eve. Blew my mind. I had such a good time with this book. Now, this is one that I won't purge because it gave me so much joy to read it, and it's still sitting with me now, and it was a week ago when I read it. This one will stay on my shelf for a while, and I'm loving in the publishing world that so many of the horror novels have houses on the covers. I want to have a collection of books that just have houses on the cover, you know. I read the September House, I read Hell House, I didn't read Devil House yet. Sarah Gailey, I think it was, Just Like Home. It's got a red house that's bleeding on the cover, and the cover's pink. I'm really digging the way that the publishing companies are doing these houses on the covers. So this book was a lot of fun, and that came from a book haul that I didn't even show you yet. So, alright, so then what I did was, I wanted to go straight into another book. So like this book, a good 5 stars. I'm looking forward to seeing what else Marcus writes. It was a good 5 stars for me. I really totally enjoyed it. So on the high of that book, I wanted to read another 5-star book. So what I did was, because my kid had gone back to school and they're feeling better, I sat down with the other 4 books that were in my book haul that I had showed you guys. This one's still a little too big, you know. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read a chapter and read a chapter and read a chapter and read a chapter and find out which one grabs me and go with that. I got to tell you, friends, I didn't even get that far. I picked up Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I read that first chapter and I didn't put it down for 2 days. I forgot about these completely. And I read Parable of the Sower. I actually started it Monday night because I finished We Used to Live Here in the morning. And I started this Monday night and I read it all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday. This book is more than 5 stars. This book was fantastic and phenomenal. It was dark. It was horrific. This book was published in 1993. In the first chapter, it starts out in 2024. We just finished 2024. Part of the book is set in 2025, 2026, 2027, I think is when we leave them, because there's a second book called Parable of the Talents. It opens up with a girl who is 15 years old. We don't even learn her name until I marked it. I dog-eared the page. Page 45. We don't even know our female's name, okay? She's 15 years old. She's in California. She has a father, a stepmother, 4 stepbrothers. We don't even know her name is Lauren until 45 pages in. There was an economic collapse. Money is now, financial ruin. Then there was, there is things going on, not global warming, climate change. There's a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico that devastated a lot of Texas, Louisiana, and we've seen that. So while this was published in 1993, we saw that, you know, with Katrina and what Katrina did. And then there's talk of tornadoes in Kentucky and Tennessee, 2 states that don't typically have tornadoes, right? And then there's I call it a mini ice age, but there's some kind of freezing going on in the upper Midwest. You want to think Minnesota, Montana, the Dakotas, up north towards the Canadian border. And then in California, they had a shortage of water. And this book hits a little too close to home with what our world is going through in this day and age. And yet it was published in 1993. So what happened is, it's so weird. When I saw this in the thrift store, I picked it up as like, because a booktuber I watch said this book just got put on the banned book list. And I would love to go through a banned book list and figure out why these books are being banned. This one, because of the California wildfires that were just happening in December and January, okay? And there is a wildfire that does go through this book while these people are traveling and they're walking up the highway to leave Southern California to go north to look for jobs. Turns out, I already have this book on my shelf, so this is a duplicate copy. And that's the other thing, when I'm out at the thrift stores, I can't remember what I bought and what I haven't, and I'll admit that freely. And that's part of the problem with the books on my floor, is I've got duplicates because I can't remember what I bought. And I know I need to do better at that. But this book floored me with, so the author, female, love that, right? She did such a good job. Octavia E. Butler. She passed in, I think it said, she passed away in 2006. This book is beautiful. I connected with the characters. I feel what the characters are feeling because of the way Octavia E. Butler wrote the book. She made me feel right along with these characters, and I like that. And I am invested in Lauren's journey. The town that she lives in California, when things were going bad, they built a wall around their town and created a community. There are people in the community that don't like each other, but they're still there for each other to help protect their houses, protect whatever kind of food and resources that they have from other people who are street poor, that live out on the street. They have no money, and money is, evidently things are like really expensive. Like it costs hundreds and thousands of dollars just to buy food, you know, and food is scarce. Money is scarce. Cars, nobody's paying for gas for their cars except for rich people maybe. If you want the police to come out because something happened, you had to pay a police fee, and the same with the fire company and an ambulance. So, there's lots of violence in the book with people killing people for food, for money, for water. There is a thing where there's a drug that's going around. They're calling it pyro because the people who take the drug like to burn things, and they get some kind of ecstasy from watching something burn. Lauren herself is a hyper empath. She is empathic and she feels other people's pain, and it's a side effect from a drug that her mother had taken while she was pregnant with Lauren, and her mother's dead, and her father had remarried. Her father's a preacher, Eventually, at some point, her father disappears and never comes home, so they presume that he's dead. And then their little village, their community, their town gets decimated. Somebody broke through their gate. People came in with fire, guns, killed everybody, raped everybody. That's a big theme going through this book of how humans they turn animalistic, and the way they kill blatantly without any regard for human life and the female body. And it's about Lauren, and she's trying to... Her parents and the older people in her community were like, the government's going to fix it. They're going to come in and everything's going to go back to the way it was. We're going to have TV. We're going to be able to shop at the malls. We can have our hair done. It's going to go back. The good days are coming. It's going to come back. The president says it's going to come back, but Lauren thinks that the world's not going to go back to the way it was, and that it shouldn't. And maybe the world should be learning the people should be learning how to take care of themselves. They should be learning how to grow their own food, make their own clothes. And she's very smart for a 15-year-old girl. And then when her community gets decimated, she's now 17 going on 18, and she starts traveling. She wants to go north. But all along, Lauren's been writing in her journal and a diary, and she's been calling it Earth Seed. And she's creating a new religion. And God is change, but God is also what you shape God to be. All right. So, I mean, there is a very big religious undertone to it, but not modern day religion as we know it. And just all the horrific things that people do, but when they don't have access to money and nobody's taking care of them, and how we all devolve into animals, you know. And then this girl, she has faith that people can learn to take care of themselves. They can learn to grow their own food. They can learn to be better people. And then as she's traveling, she picks up 2 other people from her community that survived. And then they pick up somebody else. A man, a woman with a baby. And then they pick up somebody else. So they're building themselves a bigger and bigger group that hopefully is going to salvage humanity. And she thinks that their salvation is out among the stars. And there was talk about the space program. So I'm curious as to what goes on in the second book called Parable of the Talents. But this book, it blew me out of the water. I was not expecting it, and I could not put it down. And I'm not doing it justice, telling you what it's about. I'm not doing it justice. Y'all have to go pick up this book. I mean, not only because it is on the banned book list, because it hits a little too close to home. See, and I think people want to be sheep. I think they want other people to come and tell them what to do and tell them everything is going to be okay, and not learn how to take care of themselves. But me, the way I was raised, I learned to take care of myself. Okay? I don't rely on anybody else. So I could identify with that part. I mean, I want to go out and put solar panels on my roof so I don't have to pay the electric company. I want to go dig a well so I don't have to pay the water bill. And I want to grow a garden so I don't have to rely on the grocery store and farmers that are elsewhere. I don't want to have to rely on anybody in case the apocalypse does happen. I don't know. Sometimes I think the next apocalypse is right around the corner for us, you know. And then maybe there are some things, some small things that we can do for ourselves and teach ourselves how food is made. I just came across a meme the other day. It says, yeah, I want to grow my own garden. I'm having a hard time finding bacon seeds. I thought it was so funny. Seeds for bacon. People don't know bacon comes from pig, right? You know, so it's not like I want to raise my own animals so I can butcher them so I can eat. But I think there are some things that we could be doing to be self-sufficient and not rely on the infrastructure, the electric company, the water company, the government, you know. So, I don't know, call me crazy, but I really enjoyed this book. There's some race in this book, too. Lauren is black. And so there is some talking about the difference between black people, white people, Latin people. It can be a bit eye-opening because I don't always see things from other people's perspective. I can only see it from mine unless somebody opens my eyes. So I really appreciate the writing in this book and how it's done. It's not heavy-handed and it's not hitting me in the head with it. It's explaining things so I can learn things, and I really do appreciate that. So that was the last book that I read for January, and that to me was a really good start for this year. This book was phenomenal. So these are my books. Will I keep going with that book stack from my book haul? Probably not, because I think I'm done with it. I think I'm bored with it. And will I move on to another stack of books? No. Now I want a different theme for February. February is still winter here. We still get snow in February. It is Black History Month in the United States. It's also Valentine's Day. So can you guys give me some suggestions? Like a theme that I could do for the month of February, since I don't want to do my stack of books that I bought, although I do want to work through all the books that I'm buying. Do I pick another random stack of books on my floor? So I am an absolute mess when it comes to books in my house. I love to be surrounded by books. That's why I have so many, and that's why they're on my bookshelves. That's why they're on my desk, on my computer. That's why they're on the floor, the coffee table. They're everywhere, but I love being surrounded by books. It makes me happy. But I do have to find some kind of balance between too many and what makes me happy. So I feel like January was a good start. I do need a couple days to reset for February. So if you guys have ran out of time again, if you guys have any suggestions on what kind of theme I could do for February, let me know down in the comments below. Because I'm not sure what I'm in the mood for. Yeah, I don't know what I'm in the mood for. So when I'm done with you guys, I am going to go put at least one stack of books away. I'm just going to tackle it one stack at a time. Like, I can see 3 Stephen King books sitting right here. I'm going to pick them up, and I'm going to put them with my Stephen King books. Just one at a time so I don't get overwhelmed. And yeah, sometimes, some days, I get overwhelmed very easily. So, and then I got to go make my calendar for February in my Google Docs, right? Are there any stats that you guys like to track on your own in regards to your reading? Let me know. Do you track all the genres that you read, the pages? And yes, audiobooks count. You can count how many hours you listen to a book. Everything counts. If you're sitting there reading your shampoo bottle and all the ingredients, that's reading, okay? Reading is reading. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, all right? Yeah, I don't know. I just talked for like an hour. So let me go get this footage in the computer, do some edits, kind of scrunch it down a little bit, and I don't know. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. And I will catch you guys in about a week when maybe I figure out what I'm going to do about February's reading, okay? Until then, bye.